biggest news this week is pretty sad. It is about the repatriation of the Filipinos working in Libya. As you all know, Libya is a very troubled country at this point. They're very close to having civil war. Unfortunately, there are about an estimated 25,000 Filipinos living and working in that state. Of those 25, records will show that a little less than 10,000 have been repatriated back to the Philippines, which leaves us asking what happened to the remaining 15,000. There is no answer. The Department of Foreign Affairs said that their program is just about over. That means they've taken home as many Filipinos as they can, leaving the fate of 15,000 uncertain. Now, some of these Filipinos working there may be there by choice. This is fine, especially the caregivers taking care of Libyan families. They may prefer or they may want to stay with the families that they're taking care of. But what about the others who would want to come home but who have no means of doing so? President Noynoy Aquino was supposedly very angry that the DFA has no further contingency plans. Now, there's a small problem there. As you all know, the DFA has had a change of leadership very, very recently. In fact, only last week. We had a former DFA secretary who has left, and a new one who is just feeding the ropes. So there is a big problem there, and the only way that it will not worsen is if the Libyan situation improves. The other big news hogging the headlines this week is the impending impeachment of Ombudsman Merceditas Gutierrez. Now, Ms. Gutierrez became ombudsman, some say because of her close ties with the former First Gentleman. Whether she was a qualified person to handle that post or not, it would seem that a large number of our congressmen believe that she has done a bad job. It is very clear now that the impeachment process is moving forward despite the attempts of Ms. Gutierrez to delay or to prevent her impending impeachment. Now, as we all know, the impeachment process begins at the House of Representatives. There will be a one-third vote required for the impeachment case to be forwarded to the Senate for trial, which is what happened with former President Estrada. According to House Speaker Sonny Belmonte, there are more than enough congressmen, way beyond the one-third needed, who will vote in favor of impeaching or removing Merceditas Gutierrez from her post as ombudsman. Yet another big story for the week was the forced resignation of Ilocos Sur Representative Ronald Singson. The case, of course, very clear. Mr. Singson, who is also a businessman, went to Hong Kong. Unfortunately, he was caught carrying some drugs. Now, that would have been a very serious case because in Hong Kong, China, carrying drugs carries with it the death penalty. That's the bad news. The good news for him is the amount he was carrying was considered as a non-commercial or very small for personal use. As a result, he gets an 18-month sentence. So he's going to be in jail in Hong Kong or in China for the next 18 months. Of course, because of what happened, he did bring great shame to the House of Representatives, which is nothing new. There have been other congressmen who have had such problems in the past. But in the case of Representative Singson, his father went to the House of Representatives and informed them that his son is now officially resigned. This means that the Commission on Elections will have to conduct elections to replace Mr. Ronald Singson. What happens to Mr. Singson after? Well, he went to Hong Kong, he said, because he wanted to rest and relax after having been the producer of the show of Usher, the blues musician. Extreme stress, he said, forced him to take some drugs, and he does admit that he does take drugs. And his mistake was taking it to Hong Kong. So what's going to happen to him after 18 months? He's going to come home, and he can probably go back to producing shows. There is a showbiz connection, by the way. His girlfriend is none other than Lovie Poe, the daughter of the late Fernando Poe Jr., the king of Philippine movies. Very pretty young lady. So I suppose Representative Singh, or former Representative Singson, will now go back to whatever showbiz endeavors he has. And then there are other news which we consider not just sad but very depressing. Some time ago, the name Carlos Garcia became known not because he was a former president, that's another Carlos Garcia, but there was a general by that name who was caught having amassed about 300 million pesos in ill-gotten wealth. That case is ongoing. And we thought, wow, that was a big case. Not so. Another former Armed Forces of the Philippines controller, Jacinto Ligot, was caught having amassed more than twice that amount, about 700 million plus in unexplained wealth. And the Senate is conducting, the Blue Ribbon Committee of the Senate is conducting a series of investigations. And former General Jacinto Ligot and his wife have been discovered to have a lot of properties which they cannot account for. This seems to be just the tip of the iceberg. There are other personalities in the AFP who have seemingly amassed a lot of wealth. We've had two names mentioned aside from the retired General Ligot, two former AFP chiefs. So where does this go from here? Is this just the start of a can of worms? We don't know yet. But certainly what we're seeing now must be very depressing for the soldiers out in the field. A soldier earning less than minimum wage, fighting for his country, his life is at stake. And what does he get? Nothing, peanuts. And the generals up there, especially the very high generals, they live in palaces, they live in mansions, they have the most expensive cars, they travel abroad. It is affecting the morale of the men and women of the armed forces of the Philippines. Not all news here in Manila is sad, however. There are some light, amusing news which came out this week. And the one that really caught our attention was the supposed willfully ignoring the name of Vice President Jejomar Binay by none other than newscaster Corina Sanchez. What's the big deal? Corina Sanchez happens to be Mrs. Mar Rojas. And Mar Rojas was defeated by Jejomar Binay for the vice presidency last year. Now, whether she did this on purpose or whether it was done subconsciously, the staff of Vice President Binay got a little bit peeved and they complained to ABS-CBN asking, why are you not mentioning the Vice President by name? It seems that whenever Ms. Corina Sanchez does her newscast and it involves things involving the office of the Vice President, she simply says the Vice President or the office of the Vice President. She does not want to mention Jejomar Binay by name. A little bit petty, don't you think? But Ms. Sanchez has not yet explained whether the accusations of the office of the Vice President are true or not. Let's see what happens. That was about it, the news of the week that's about to end. And it was a typical week, nothing too much happening, except for the really sad case of the Filipinos still trapped in Libya. So, to all of you, this is Peting Dolor reporting from Manila for Philippine News. Good day.